Today we wanna study a new portion from the Kerala read of 10th standard, the poem Blowing in the Wind written by the poet Bob Dylan. This is not at all a type of poem. This is a song which deals with the ill effects of the civil rights movement during the Vietnam War. Before going into our stanzas, we may know more about our writer. The poet Bob Dylan was born on May 24, 1941. He is an American singer, songwriter, artist and writer. His early songs such as Blowing in the Wind and The Times They Are A-Changing become anthems for the American civil rights and anti-war movements. His mid-1960s recordings, backed by rock musicians, climbed the heights of the United States music charts. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature for his contributions to music in 2016. As per our poet, he was not at all an American singer. He was a songwriter, artist and writer. The poem as we study now, the Blowing in the Wind and the other poem, The Times They Are A-Changing, become an anthems for the American civil rights movement. Is clear? His mid-1960s recordings had climbed the United States music charts. In 2016, for his contributions to music, he won the major prize, the Nobel Prize in Literature, in 2016. Now let us know more about our chapter. It may give us a clear vision about our chapter in detail. Blowing in the Wind is a song written by Bob Dylan in 1962. It is a protest song that raises rhetorical questions about peace, war and freedom. Bob Dylan believes that the answers are there, however no one dares to find them. It deals with the ill effects of the civil rights movement during the Vietnam War. Dylan was the views that the government focuses on war and ignores the violation of African American. Protest song means protest songs are sung against a war or an exploitation. What are rhetorical questions? Rhetorical questions are those questions which have their own answer around our surroundings, but we can't or no one dares to find them. Mainly through this poem, the poet criticizes the attitudes of the people who ignore the injustice and oppression. Throughout the poem, the poet asks the readers a series of 9 rhetorical questions to know their answers, but no one is daring to answer them loudly. We may enter into a chapter, the poem Blowing in the Wind written by the poet Bob Dylan. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? In these lines, the poet throws light on the belief system prevailing those days. It was believed that a boy can become a man only after going to war. While showing his disagreement, the poet shows his disagreement with this belief. Ask how many roads, that is, how many times a person would be required to fight wars so that he may be called a man. The main highlight of this poem is that we may, as far as we like, can be criticize this poem's meaning. So, as far our readers' belief, we may criticize and write its summary. The main meaning of a first line is that how many life experience a man should be required to fight wars so that he may be called upon a man. In the first line, according to the grammar portions, the word road, it's an example of symbolism. It means that experience or sufferings is a symbolical meaning of the word roads. The second line, how many seas must a white dove sail before she slurps in the sand? In these lines, the poet raises another rhetoric question. What's that? He asks, how many seas must a white dove sail? Here, white dove is an example of peace. That is, in these lines, the poet asks that how many times the war will be fought before achieving peace. Sleeping in the sand refers to the fact that there is no war. In this line, the poet uses the phrase sleeping in the sand as a reference to the passage in the Bible that describes the incident of Noah's sending the doves out to find land after the flooding of the earth. He was searching for a place to land and rest. Through these lines, the poet interprets that how many days or times the people should wait to bid off the war days. The next lines, yes. And how many times must the cannon balls fly before they are forever banned? What does the poet mean in these lines? The poet asks how many times the weapons will be used before they might be totally banned. Here, the word cannonballs, it is a type of phrasal verb. It means the representation of war or violence. The original meaning of this line is that the poet says we have fought enough wars and they should be ended now. The time is arrived to end the wars now and they need peace and freedom. The last line of this stanza, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. This line is an example of refrain. In these lines, the poet says that the answers to all of the questions he raised in the verses above lies in the winds. What do you mean by these lines? That is, the answers for these questions does exist, but that is waiting for someone to grab it. But the problem is that nobody troubles to quest for those answers, and everyone suffers what they get on, and no one is again querying for what they have received. This is what the meaning of the first stanza. In this stanza, the poet inquires three types of rhetorical questions. I thought you are clear about its meanings thoroughly. Now let's go to the next stanza. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? What could we interpret in these lines? The poet says that how many years can a mountain exist? Here mountain symbolizes the pride and ego of those who desire war. So here the mountain symbolizes whom? The pride and ego of those who favors for the war. According to the poet, our poet, who is the poet Bob Dylan, the lust for the war of the strong, here strong as mountains, will not last for long. It will sink into the sea someday. This is what our life is also, right? If we sow jealousy in our life, it's just like mountains. They may not last for long. It will sink into the sea someday. The next lines, yes. And how many times can some people exist before they are allowed to be free? In the second couplet, the poet says there is a direct reference to the discrimination of African Americans in this couplet. Right? Did you feel it? In those times means in those African Americans anti-war movement time, they were treated as second-class citizens, in spite of living in a free country. The poet wonders when these people will be able to live freely and might not just exist on the earth. Yes, and how many times must a man turn his head pretending he just doesn't see? This is the third couplet, and this means that the poet wonders again how many times the good men will ignore the unjust and discriminatory things that they see around them. From these words, we can understand that the good man is very much suffering to say his words outside to the world, that his discrepancy among the white people is so dangerous in that condition. To the end of this stanza, the line, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Again, our poet repeats the same couplet from the same stanza or the first one, right? So, we can understand that in the second stanza also, no one is daring to find the answers for the queries, means for the rhetorical questions what our poet has been asked. Now going to third stanza, we may check out that is there anyone responding for the questions asked by our poet. The third stanza, Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Before briefing the stanza, may I say that here freedom refers for the sky. Sky is a symbolism representing here. According to the poet, the sky, that is, freedom is hidden before the wars. So he wonders how many times one will have to face the wars in order to gain freedom and liberty. Here the poet refers to the long quest of the people for freedom. Freedom is not insist in a word, right? Freedom should be getting type like a sky. How is our sky seen? Sky is seen all around the world, right? Likewise, freedom is also needed. We need freedom for everything to insist every prescriptions in our world, right? That wise the poet describes here freedom is indeed like a sky. The second couplet of the third stanza. Yes, and how many ears must one have before he can hear people cry? Here, people cry is an example of auditory image. What's meant by auditory image? It is a type of image that we could represent in a way of audio or sound. So, people cry is here an example of audio image. Note that grammar portion. So, what's the meaning of the second couplet? Yeah. The poet wonders how long the government will remain deaf to the sorrows of the commoners, and when will them hear the people's plea. What's my plea? Their sadness against war and in favor of peace. In all, we may understand a message from this couplet. What's that? The people is very much starving for peace and fraternity. They need freedom for whatever they live, right? In the world, they mainly deserve freedom. But according to the poet, in this condition, the commoners are suffering too much in spite of the war, right? The last couplet of this poem. Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? And it's repeating again. Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? What's the meaning of this last couplet? The poet again wonders when the government, when the authorities will realize that too many people have died because of war, and it should be stopped now. The last sentence is having a double meaning. It's that the poet has a plea of peace in these lines, right? He requests and cries a lot for peace through this last couplet. At the ending, again and again, we hear the same sentences from the stanza, first one and second one. What's that? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Again and again, our poet is reminding that no one is therefore grabbing the answers of these questions. That's what the end of the song. I hope you all have understood the meanings thoroughly. If you have any doubts regarding this chapter, please do comment in the comment box. I have thoroughly explained this in simple English words. So if you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay? Thanks for watching.